Very good morning, happy Sunday morning, and I'm just so glad to be able to meet with all of you today here. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Chia Ping. I am from the School of Engineering and Physical Sciences. I also serve as the Associate Director of Learning and Teaching, and specifically, as you know, for School of Engineering and Physical Sciences, we have a couple of programs: chemical engineering, electrical and electronics engineering, and mechanical engineering. And I serve at the electrical and electronics engineering. So first of all, thank you so much for coming here today. And this session is going to be a short session, but it's really for us to reflect on whatever that we have gone through for the past year. Especially, we have come across a very interesting year, I would say, and then share stories. I would like to really just share stories from the engineering perspective on what we have been doing as a community, as an institution, to really prepare our students to really become our future leaders. And moving forward, to just maybe explore with one another, just think of what we can really do as a community to really brave through these interesting times of our life, right? So that's why the title for today, to really, from engineering to building resilient communities, really just to have us really have the notion of, regardless of whatever situation that we have, we can really bounce back from whatever that we are going through. So if we just kind of just take a little bit of time now to reflect a little bit for a moment on what we have experienced for the past 1 year. And today's the 28th of March. You know that shortly just last year on the 18th of March, we had our very first movement control order, the MCO. And it's just really a little short while after a year that we actually experienced this. And let's just say that within this 1 year, we really have experienced tremendous change. Would you agree? So let's take a time to really think about what's the biggest change, or what is the biggest highlight that we have had, just personally or even just with our community. So perhaps I can just come around and just get you to introduce yourself. So for Christopher, right? So what would it be for you? I mean, like, what's the biggest change for you personally when you are in this, reflecting back from 1 year till now?
I think personally the biggest change for me would probably be like not being able to move around as much, and my daily necessities like the gym or going some places are more constricted or like prohibited, so I couldn't even go to them, which affected my routine and daily activities.
And that's really true. And just for the benefit of the audience, I'll just paraphrase a little bit. So Christopher here has actually mentioned that, in terms of movement, it has become restricted. And of course, with the daily activities, it has kind of disrupted what you normally used to be able to do, especially going to gym or maybe like meeting friends and so on and so forth, right? What about you, Miss Catherine, right?
Can you just say almost the same?
It's almost the same. Yes, that's true. And maybe any other input from you, Mr. Siva?
I think if I'm work-wise, working in the private sector, I think we have started to use the media interface such as mobile video conferencing to a greater extent than what it was used before.
And thanks, Mr. Siva, for your input, Mr. Christopher and Miss Catherine. And that's all really valid. And especially, so Mr. Siva just related to us on how the pandemic has really disrupted the way that we communicate with each other and the way we operate as an organization. Just like what Mr. Siva experienced, I am experiencing it as well. So with the lockdown that happened, and just as what Christopher pointed out as well. So things have changed to online environment. We are expected to really keep functioning effectively, if not more effectively, because the dynamic has become so different, because it's different when you have a face-to-face interaction as compared to online interaction. And for that to keep functioning, that it means that we also need to be very technologically adapt with, the media interface, video conferencing. How do we present ourselves in front of the PC with talking to people and all that as well? So this is a really great response. So I thank you for that. And really just thinking about things that we have been talking about. I would like to just lead you to what Dr. Tedros has mentioned here. So our Director General of WHO, World Health Organization, he actually mentioned that the impact of pandemic has really had its toll on our people's mental health, and because of social isolation, the fear of contagion, loss of family members, compounded by the distress caused by loss of income and often unemployment. So in this context here, it's really wrapping very nicely on what Christopher, Catherine, and Siva have mentioned earlier. We are really, in a way, immobilized. In a way, we went through a disruption of not being able to move freely. And on top of that, we are expected to be functioning as an individual, be it working or studying, and making sure that we are still able to adapt with such situation that arises, and by the comforts of probably being from home. So we are expected to be learning as a student from home, by 4 blocks of wall, and we are also expected to be functioning as a leader of an organization, to really be working from home and just making sure that things still run as smoothly as it is. So in this case that we already know things are moving so rapidly, and right before the pandemic, we actually mentioned about Industrial Revolution 4.0. So in this case, we are already really teasing the idea of things getting more automated already. And come 20, 30 years down the road, we will be having a lot of different jobs that would have yet to exist for now. And with the dynamic and the pandemic that we have currently, it has really just expedited the change that we really need to be at. And who would have thought, if you ask me from 1 year ago until now, I would have thought that we will be working primarily from home. I wouldn't have thought so 1 year ago, but that's what life is about. I mean, things happen, and the more important thing is how we actually, as an organization and as a community, look forward to braving these uncertainties. And we definitely have some ideas on how we can do this, and it always starts with one step, right? So let's really look at how it has impacted the education center, the sector as well, because economic disruptions, especially touching on employment, touching on our mental health. So we are really looking at graduates and how the job prospects have definitely changed for Mr. Christopher, for example. I mean, once you have completed your program, and in the future, we can only be really, really prepared. And at the same time, we would not actually know what would be the jobs that are existing later on. And what we can then do is really prepare ourselves to be able to really go through this and to be very ready with going to any other job that is required. Because currently, you can see that even our organizations, a lot of organizations are really opening up to changing the way they hire graduates. So this also means that graduates will then really need to have transferrable skills, regardless of what program they do, into adapting to the role of the organization requires, especially when we really talk about how the job industry would have been changed totally in near future, right? And so for the impact of Education Center, I just want to really share some stories also about how we go about it in Heriot-Watt University, because with the pandemic that just started a while ago last year, what happened was, before this we had face-to-face teaching. So we had to really do a very quick crisis migration of conventional face-to-face teaching into the online active learning environment. And long gone are the days where people think, oh, if I do not do face-to-face teaching, then it just means that I am recording the lecture and letting my students to really look at it. So for us here, we really are looking beyond just capturing the lecture physicality of the whole idea of recording the lecture. So we are not looking at, if we are doing face-to-face teaching, I'm seeing Christopher, I'm having the, delivering the lecture. And we do not just replicate that in our online setting. And for us here, we actually do something as what we call as responsive blended learning, which I will really share with you later, because it also gives Christopher a little bit of an idea on how to be better prepared in his September intake later. So in this case, then it means that we actually really need to have a look at how we design our curriculum, because maybe Mr. Siva also can have really think about how dynamics have changed, even from your working environment, from physical to the online. It's the same also, maybe just slightly different context when we do it in a learning and teaching environment. So for us here, we really look at creating active learning environment for our students. And in this case, it really doesn't matter what is the situation that comes to us, but it's more on how we as an organization, as a community, go through it. So we believe in Heriot-Watt University, it's very important that we stress on the academic excellence alongside building character of the individual. Because seriously, nowadays, employers are no more looking at how academically excellent you are as a student or as a graduate. They are also looking at what are the skills that you have. What can you bring to the table to actually be an effective leader later on in the organization? So that means that it's even more important now for us to be able to be very resilient and for us to really start building that character within our future leader. And so that is what we really look at as a purpose-driven, values-led organization, right? And I would just like to also tell you, this is what Christopher will be expected to do also in our institution. All our year one students or our newly enrolled students will go through what we call as Empower program. So Empower program sits in and is a very important program within our university here, because over here we emphasize on positive education. So it means that in your academic, at the same time while you're working on your academic courses, your EE related courses, you will also be having an Empower program. You go through the first year of workshops where you have all these workshops catered to these 6 different domains, because we really believe that you are going to be a global citizen with leadership and impact. We also will be then looking at domains like emotional intelligence, resilience, and happiness. And that's why, just to touch on this itself, I hope you also have had a look at our gratitude wall. We have a gratitude wall along the hallway here, and I suggest that you just drop by and have a look at that later, because that's really a wall for or a platform that we as a community go to and just write about like simple things that we are grateful for. So practicing gratitude is definitely one of the values that we really emphasize on as an organization. And I don't think that you can actually see this a lot in any other institution, because we really believe that building character actually really has to start from within ourselves, and it starts with all the simple things that we do. People skills, entrepreneurship, innovation and creativity, critical thinking and decision making, and employability and industrial relevance. So when you come to Empower program, these are all the domains that you will be learning and really building on. And I must say that one of our biggest highlight will be our impact statement workshops. So this means that Christopher will also be working on identifying his life's purpose. So impact statement workshops, I am really also very proud to be able to be a part of the team to work on this. So impact statement workshops will be a compulsory workshop that you actually go through, because this is actually mapped to the Empower program. And this is where we have a team of academics, so the teachers and the lecturers and the professors of the institution, alongside our head of professional services. So we actually have our heads of HR, human resource management. We have our CEO, deputy CEO, to be on this team as impact coach. And each coach then, that we call impact coach, actually guides and coach our 10 students in a group in a very personalized setting in terms of helping and guiding them through a 4-week process of identifying their life's purpose, and how then with life's purpose that you have identified, you align it with everything that you do, because we really believe that every one of us here does come here with a purpose. And that's why it is so important for us to identify that and refine it further as we go along the way. And it's because of this, then it helps us to anchor, especially when things are not going as smoothly as what we know with all these uncertainties that we have for this, in this situation here. So this is actually a very, very interesting program. And I'll be looking forward to getting feedback from Christopher later when he has completed this in his 1-year program, right? So let's touch a little bit more then as we talk about how things have changed from the face-to-face setting and then to the online setting of our education approach, right? As we see ourselves as pioneering in education, that also indicates that we really emphasize on the academic excellence alongside building character. So in this case, I can share stories on how we do it as a School of Engineering and Physical Sciences, EPS we call it. So in our university, we have this thing called the responsive blended approach. So if you recall earlier, I mentioned that we need to go beyond replicating just a recorded video for our students for them to learn. So in this online setting, how do we then go about it, right? So in this case, what we do then is that we create an active learning environment. What does it mean by active learning environment? It basically means that we provide a safe collaborative space that involves students and teachers' collaboration. So the learning is therefore mentioned as active learning as opposed to passive learning where students just click on the video, watch video, and that's about it. So we do not do that in our institution. We really believe in accommodating whatever setting that we may have. If face-to-face setting is allowed, then we combine that with that. And while face-to-face setting is not allowed, as you know, just a few months ago, then it means that we support our students through online session. And the more important thing is that students do not just sit in and watch video. What we do then is that we also engage interactive session with the students, and students then also take charge of their learning. So I can just bring you a little bit example of how I do it in my class. So with the situation that is going on, bearing in mind that we are facing a pandemic, our students are probably in a room trying to understand a lecture and probably would not even have had an opportunity to step to the campus, especially for our new students. So how does it be then? So that's why here for us, it's important that we really make sure that they feel connected with us and we really provide the space. So what we usually do here, I'll just take one example of the courses that I teach. So with the recorded videos that students have, then when we come to that session, we do not just really look at and ask students to watch the video. They would have come to the class being prepared for the topics. But how do we then make sure that our students really understand the topic? So in this case, then for me, I like to really incorporate this technique, and we call this the scaffolding technique. So scaffolding technique is just a pedagogical term. It basically means that we are providing a step-by-step guide so that this becomes a tool for our students to be able to reinforce their understanding. So what happens then is that, for example, you may have a handout that you have to make sure that that provides all the guided questions that students will then have to really look into it while watching the video to get the answers. And during the session itself, we also do some interactive session. For example, we have something called the Kahoot. We can do Jeopardy. So this basically sort of involves the incorporation of teamwork, where students need to work in team. Let's say if I have like a team of 30 students, then in this particular session, then it means that we can have probably 5 to 6 groups, which then kind of compete for understanding and just answering the questions. And so for me as a lecturer, I really serve not just as a lecturer, but it's also as a peer, as a mentor, and also know when to intervene to make sure that all the things are as what it is. Because while we are having face-to-face setting and online setting, we want to make sure that the learning outcomes are still met, that our students still really understand the topics that are going around. And I just want to really share also, so I am also teaching Year 2 students for this particular semester. And bear in mind that this is the pandemic that we are going on, and things definitely happen probably, and we only can understand what everyone else is experiencing during this time. And let's just say that it's not simple all the time for us, let alone our students. So imagine my surprise when our student, for every cohort of students, we have our student leaders, student representative, and they actually wrote to me in the beginning of semester that they wish to lead the weekly session all by themselves. And of course, with my presence in the class. So I was like, oh, okay. And the great part is, for our group of students here, each of them tends to get the opportunity to be the professor of the week. So it means that based on the discussion that we already had for this particular week, for example, this is topic A, and the next time we meet, we will have our professor of the week, and this is totally our student. And they have the creativity and the authority to kind of like design how they want it to be, to really like guide the other students to make sure that we all have the same understanding, and so that the learning then becomes very facilitated and very effective in this case. Because during this time, the one thing that is very important is that we want to make sure that our students are able to cope with the academic demands, especially on online learning, because the dynamic has definitely changed. So just imagine that I am very surprised with my students' creativity as well. Some of them go through with presenting case studies. So they have case studies that are related to the topic, and then they guide the online session. So literally everything that I just described here, this was what we did during the pandemic when we all were we were in the house, delivering online content with our students. And so bear in mind that I have never really even seen these students before because of the pandemic itself, but this is really to my surprise. So some of them did the case-to-case, some of them decided to do like a quiz-like just to make sure who is actually the good high scorer or whatever. And the beauty of it is during this time, for example, the 2 hour of session that we have, if any student has any question, it has become a very safe space for them to be asking questions as well. Because as an organization, it's extremely important that our students feel that it's safe enough for them to ask questions, especially sometimes when they feel that if the questions will be relevant to the topic, how does it feel when I'm asking this kind of question? How is it going to be perceived by my other peers? So in our setting here, it's so safe as such that students are they are really relaxed enough, they're comfortable enough to be able to ask any questions. And to my surprise, I do not have to be the one to always answer them, because the students now are then really getting more confidence to guide their other peers as well. So this is really like things that we are really building on, because bear in mind things that we mentioned just now, that students are then expected to grow into our future leaders. They need to have transferable skills ready to adapt with the demands of the industry. So definitely within this context, when we are in our organization delivering the learning and teaching, we need to really factor that in as well. And that's where our students also come to play. And just imagine, we usually have the weekly professor of the week, right? So just recently, 2 weeks ago, we had a student who suddenly informed me that because of some emergency, he just could not make it. And this student was supposed to lead the session. So, and this was just 2-3 days before our session. So, and we have made it clear and we have agreed collectively that this will be a main student-led session with me being there to provide intervention when necessary. So to my surprise, within such short period of time, actually one of their peers actually stepped in and said, never mind, since you are not able to make it for the session, let me replace you and lead the class. And so this is really an example, while simple, but I think this is such a strong emotional point for me as well as a teacher, because it indicates that this is exactly what we are trying to achieve as purpose-driven, values-led organization, where students come in to step in for their friends. And we are talking about year 2 students here. right? So I'm just really proud of them. And I hope you then get a gist of the idea. And of course, with responsive blended learning, it doesn't mean that all the courses are done this way, because we are aware that every course may have slightly different implication. So the good part is that we get together as a course team. So when I mention course team, you know that we are a global university. We have campuses from in the Dubai campus, the UK campus, the Edinburgh campus, and also Malaysia campus. So we always get together, the lecturers themselves, to agree and streamline all the content on what you go through, on what our students go through. Yeah. So before I go to this, you can just see that, and I'm just extracting some of the information that you can see. So despite the pandemic that happened, we also have our students who achieve, for example, the IEEE FYP competition. And this is in the year of 2020, right? And then speaking of that, this is basically on the news of academic excellence. And this is, it's really huge if you're an EE student, especially. IEEE is the Institute of, Electrical and Electronics, and this is one of the international body that we have that all the EE engineers really relate to. And what about this one? So we have always been talking about students-led activities. So we also have this scheme under what we call as WISE scholarship. So that means Women in Science and Engineering, right? So in order for us to cope better with the pandemic, so our students, so you can see that on the top right here, her name is Suprit. So on the bottom left, her name is Husna. Suprit is doing mechanical engineering. Husna is doing chemical engineering. And the beauty of it is that they actually lead a session to really talk about power of youth in STEM. And during these sessions, and this is just one of examples of the many sessions that we have, we just make sure that the students can then relate to one another. They speak from their experience in terms of how they manage their time, especially during the pandemic. How is it that they meet with the tight deadlines of the courses? Because of course, just to be frank, it's engineering course is also quite an interesting course. You want to be making sure that you're always adapt with things and be meeting the deadline as well. So, and with regards to the balance, the study-life balance, academic part is one thing. What do you do then with regards to the non-academic part, the extracurricular activities? And how do you really make sure that your well-being is in check during this time? So these are just some examples of the sessions that we always do. And we make sure that our students here also stand in to mention, not just the beauty of how well they cope, we also cover things that are quite difficult from students' perspective. So what are the struggles that students actually experience during this time? And what can they do better to really overcome this? So just as I mentioned, well-being factor and all is extremely important for us as an organization. And of course, for our program, just to indicate to you earlier, we have chemical engineering. I'm glad that Christopher is joining us as an electrical and electronics engineer very soon, right? And we also have mechanical engineering. So in EPS, or our school here, by acronym EPS, we have this, but one that I need to really emphasize on also is that we see ourselves as global university. So this means that regardless of our student being in Malaysia campus, Dubai campus, or UK campus, everyone is going through the same course content, the same assessments. And that's why we all get together as a course team. So this means the lecturers from the Dubai, UK, and Malaysia coming in together every semester to provide the best for our students. And with this, one of the beauty is that we also have global teaching. Global teaching indicates that for one particular course, in this case, Christopher will get the opportunity to be learning from Malaysia lecturer, our Dubai, and also the UK lecturer. And the great part is, you know that for engineering course, we definitely have project intensive, a yearly project-led based course, right? So you get together with a team of friends to work on the projects. And then as you go on further to your final year, that's where you saw just now on this bit here that you work on your FYP. FYP means final year project. final year project is basically just the project, the individual project that you will need to accomplish at your final year in your undergraduate study. So imagine that you are working with a team of your friends first, right? And then we slowly build this into getting you ready to be working on individual project when you're in your final year. And the best part is, because we're a global university, it means that Christopher also gets to be working with friends in Dubai, being partnered with his friends in UK campus. So we actually do that in terms of the partnership and everything, teamwork from across campuses to be working on a similar project. So it's really about learning different culture as well as the different dynamics of how each individual is learning. So this bit here is something that we are really proud of as well, because this actually just indicates how we are as a global university, where you actually have access to the community across the other campuses. So this is what one that I would like to also emphasize. So moving forward, just now we talked about how things have been, especially with the pandemic. I'm touching it on this because we are going to be currently at the stage of vaccination stage, I would say. So people are getting vaccinated, and soon enough, we may be getting to post-recovery. So we as institution, you have heard about some stories of how we share this in terms of how we play a role in making sure that our graduates are also building their character, building their skills, enhancing their leadership capacity in this case, alongside academic excellence. We're working with teams from different countries, different programs as well, right? And then moving forward, what are we then going to look at? We want to make sure that once Christopher graduates, he will also be ready with transferable skills, such that whatever job that you get into after this, you will be ready to be able to just really lead the post-pandemic recovery stage. So this is the really one intention of the whole talk for today. So I believe every one of us can definitely play a role in a change, and the change probably just starts with us, within us. I think like for greater change, before we can change the world, do our part, first of all, it's very important that we ourselves also just wish and are driven to be better version of ourselves on a daily basis. And that's also what we try to incorporate in our young minds as well. So this is really like the last part of my presentation. I hope you have a good insight on what we are, why we do what we do, and how we do it, especially during this pandemic. And I hope Christopher is excited after you have heard this presentation, and it's just a glimpse of what you may experience. So perhaps I can just ask Christopher again, I mean, like how you're feeling, or if you have like any question, just maybe some comment or input about the whole thing, since you have come here today, and it's such an opportunity to be able to meet with you.
No, I think you answered all my questions.
Mm-hmm. All right. So how's your feeling? So your dad mentioned that you will be joining in September?
Yeah. I'm feeling pretty confident.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
Online learning I don't think really causes a lot of problems for me. I think I'm very adaptable to it, so it's okay.
All right. So I think we are just a lucky bunch here, because like to begin with, Christopher himself is already confident with being able to cope with the demands of academic online. So I really welcome you to our Heriot-Watt community. I really, I'm excited to see you around. I definitely will be seeing you maybe in year 2 or year 1 and so on. So that's really good. So currently we will really open the floor for any questions and answer. And we may have, I'm just wondering if Catherine and Siva have any questions or comment. Thank you. So Miss Ihya here is helping with looking at whether or not we have certain questions. So this is a very good question here. So I would like to also emphasize that all our programs, so the question goes like this: upon graduation, how do we get registered to Board of Engineers? So in this case, just to give you a little bit of context on what Board of Engineers mean. So for all our engineering degree program, it has to be accredited, and this actually goes by the BEM, in short, Malaysia. So every young graduates, all our graduates who accomplish their degree program get to register with the Board of Engineers. So one important criteria that we really need to have is to be receiving the accreditation from our Engineering Accreditation Council, and that is what we call as EAC. So I'm really proud to say that we are all accredited, all our programs are accredited, and in this case, for the questions here, we will definitely guide you to register with the Board of Engineers, especially after you have completed your final year and you have completed your degree program. So that is definitely not an issue at all. Just also to add on, we do not just get our local accreditation body here. In this case, that is our EAC Malaysia. We also have international body accreditation. So that means that that's how we emphasize on maintaining our academic quality. So we have joint accreditation with our Dubai and UK campus as well, and that goes through the IET. So for IET, that's for the Electrical and Electronics program. For iChemie, that's for chemical. For iMechie, that's mechanical. So these three bodies that I mentioned, these are the international bodies which oversees the regulation and the academic quality as well, right? So can explain a bit about the core subjects in the program. So in this case, I can just really give you a quick brief. If you are interested in chemical engineering, then most likely you are interested in courses that help you to understand better about processes and the products, right? If we are talking about mechanical engineering, it's more on probably things that are moving parts, stability. So you have like some courses in terms of thermodynamics, for example, fluid mechanics and so on. For electrical and electronics, you will see that electrical subjects, electronic subjects, but I would also like to emphasize that maybe this part here is something that sometimes people tend to overlook. EE engineers also learn communication system courses. So in this case, all the signals, waves. So these are some of the very short brief on what it is about. For those who have asked this question, I thank you a lot. And can I just encourage you to come to Heriot-Watt University Malaysia and speak to our consultants. We are very happy to just really guide you through what are the courses that will be suitable for you as well. Just like what Christopher is doing here, right? So can you explain how the Empower program is being done with the current situation? Thank you so much for your question here. Empower program, as we know earlier, it's the program that all students go through, and this really is intended for us to be building the character of our students to be purposeful individuals. In this case then, of course, we will need to meet with the government regulation, and when the face-to-face setting is not allowed, we do the online learning. And just as we mentioned just now, the impact statement workshops that we just did, that I shared during the talk earlier, we also had that in terms of online delivery. So just imagine one of the examples will be during the impact statement workshops, we have one coach guiding 10 students. So it actually gives them a very safe and personalized environment. Yeah. So it is, in short, in online setting, but be sure that the online setting is really also just another means of how we deliver things effectively in this case. So I would like to take EE, but I am bad in vectors. What courses are heavy in vectors? Should I go for engineering? So thank you so much for this kind of question. But again, I would say that generally, I would suggest that you also approach us and speak to our consultant, because from there, then we need to be able to really identify what do you mean when you mention that you are bad in vectors. Because all these perceptions here, we want to just also be very clear about how things are. So come and speak with us, then we actually will then know how you are at the level of your vectors, and how we can then really like assist you to identify what are the courses that you would be really like good at and to be really coping with, right? So what are the subfields on EE? In EE, just as I have mentioned, we have the electrical bit, we have the electronics, and we also have the communication system. And then, as you know, currently with Industry Revolution 4.0, we really talk about a lot of automation bit. So you can expect some programming as well in all your projects, courses that you go through from year 1 all the way to year 4. So I hope this gives you a quick overview on what it is. I like this question here. Is engineering a hard course to pass? Christopher, you want to just add on to your opinion to this? Since you have selected engineering program. So what do you think?
I don't think it's a hard course to pass if you put in the dedication, the time, the effort, commitment, manage your time well. It should be easy.
Right. I really love what Christopher just mentioned, because by all means, it just depends on your commitment, your dedication, and really also it's just about how you cope with the learnings and so on. So what course is not hard? I mean, like, again, it's a matter of perception. If you want to look at it as a hard course or whether it's a simple course, I believe in every program that you do, we definitely have some struggles here and there. So it's really just about how we look at that, like what Christopher mentioned, your dedication to be able to reach out to your lecturers or your friends when you have issues and for discussions and so on. So I think these are the bits that we really are looking at. Not so much about what happens, it's about how we deal with the situation and know when to reach for help. So that's what we also try to achieve here, right? Thanks, Aya, for the question. I'm glad that this question was being asked and we get a first-hand answer from Christopher here. And Christopher, being our soon-to-be year 1 students, he has answered this very perfectly. So thanks for your question here. So I all subjects in electromagnetism. So what did electromagnetism contribute to? So thanks for the question. That's a very good one. So if Christopher is joining us in September intake, Christopher will be doing this in the year 1 semester 2, and there's also another course in electromagnetism in year 2 semester 2, right? So just as I have mentioned, electromagnetism, it relates a little bit more on communication system, because during this time, this is where you learn about how waves work, how do we then actually like transmit signal or receive signal, just in terms of how we are communicating right now, if you're using a mobile phone to communicate with your loved ones. So these are the bits in terms of how you actually relate it to. So it's more geared towards the communication system. And the good part is that if you join Christopher in his September intake, then it means that you're doing your electrical, your electronics, communication system subjects as a whole. And as slowly but surely as you go through your more senior year, you get to really choose in terms of what you would like to do, especially the final year project that was mentioned earlier, because this is an individual project. Then you get to choose in terms of what line that you really are interested to working on. And you are going to do this project with supervision of one of the staff in the EE program. So it's going to be exciting, right? So, all right, so this is actually like the last question here. So I really thank everyone for joining us today. And thanks again, Christopher, Catherine, and Siva for joining us today. Thanks for your time. So happy Sunday to everyone. Thank you so much. Right.